Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Elementary treatment of utility theory. Definition of utility. Utility may be defined as the satisfaction that a consumer derives from consuming a commodity or service at any particular time. We have types of utility. Under types of utility, we have the form utility, place utility, time utility, total utility, marginal utility, and average utility. We'll be looking at the form utility. Form utility refers to the change in the form or structure of a commodity during its manufacturing process in order to increase its utility. This means that the commodity does not possess the utility power in its original form. For instance, flour does not satisfy the immediate wants of consumers till when changed to bread. Secondly, the place utility. This involves the changing of location of a commodity from one geographical area where it has little utility to another area where its utility is higher. This means that for them to satisfy the consumers' wants, they have to be shifted to other places where they will be demanded. By so doing, place utility has been added to them. For instance, agricultural raw materials like rubber and cocoa are produced in large quantity in West Africa and transported to European nations where they satisfy industrial needs. Time utility. The time utility refers to the satisfaction a consumer will derive for the consumption of a particular commodity at a given time. This means that a commodity or service does not satisfy wants all the time. Some goods may not possess utility immediately they are produced. Such goods will have to be warehoused until when they are needed to satisfy consumers' needs. On some occasions, the producers deliberately warehouse their goods after production in order to command higher prices. The total utility. This refers to the total amount of satisfaction a consumer derives from the consumption of a commodity at a particular time. This means that the more the quantity of goods available to a consumer, the more the total utility derived from them. However, the amount of satisfaction or utility received from the consumption of goods does not increase at equal rates to the quantity of goods consumed. The consumer has a saturation point in the consumption of a particular commodity at a given time. Under the total utility, a graph is given to us, and in that graph, the x-axis shows the number of pizza slices, while the y-axis shows the total joy. We also have the point of saturation, which is the point where the consumer consumes a particular commodity at a given time. The total utility is calculated as the average utility times quantity consumed. Marginal utility. This refers to the additional satisfaction derived by consuming an extra unit of a commodity. And here, the Robbins marginal utility graph is given. We have the x-axis, which consists of the number of wins, and the y-axis, which consists of the marginal utility or the units of utility. The marginal utility is calculated as change in total utility divided by changes in consumption. Average utility. This refers to the satisfaction which a consumer derives per unit of a commodity consumed. A graph is also given to us. The x-axis consisting of the units of the commodity consumed and the y-axis which consists of the units of utility. To calculate the average utility, which is the total utility divided by the quantity consumed. Law of diminishing marginal utility. The law of diminishing marginal utility states that the satisfaction derived from consuming successive units of a commodity will diminish as the total consumption of that commodity increases. For instance, a beer drinker may derive maximum satisfaction in the first 3 bottles, after which decrease in satisfaction may set in as more and more bottles of beer are consumed, until when he may be in a position not to consume anymore. The satisfaction or utility derived from beer in this case diminishes as the consumption of beer from a certain point increases. The graph below illustrates the law of diminishing marginal utility. Under it, we have the quantity of goods consumed, total utility, average utility, and the marginal utility. The total utility, which is gotten by multiplying the average utility times the quantity consumed, that is, the marginal utility here is not given, which is 0 multiplied by 10, and which will give us the total utility. While the average utility is calculated by dividing the total utility with the quantity consumed. That is, the total utility given to us as 10 and the quantity consumed, which is 1, will give us the average utility. The marginal utility. The marginal utility is calculated by dividing the changes in total utility with the changes in consumption, which is 2 minus 1 divided by 14 minus 1, and which will give us 4. The concept of origin. This refers to the minimum quantity of a commodity which must be consumed before the commodity can yield any satisfaction to the consumer. Utility maximization. This means that a consumer can maximize total utility by reducing his expenditure on certain commodities whose increased consumption yields low satisfaction, and increased expenditure on others which give him higher level of satisfaction. That is, the additional utility derived from the consumption of additional commodity is equal to the price of the commodity. This means that as consumers wish to maximize their satisfaction, more of a commodity will be purchased if the maximum satisfaction derived from the commodity is greater than the price of the commodity, and vice versa. For free commodities like air, that is, goods which have no price in money terms, the consumption will be a continuous one until the marginal utility is equal to 0. Consumer surplus. Consumer surplus refers to the difference between the amount a consumer budgeted to pay for a particular commodity based on the expected level of satisfaction and the actual amount he paid to have the commodity.